Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a couple major problems right now. This should be taken with a massive grain of salt, but I've logged about 200 hours since the game's release, and I gotta say, the game is absolutely fantastic, but there are a couple glaring issues that should have a spotlight portrayed onto it so we can actually get it fixed. The first that comes to mind is anti-cheat and crossplay. The devs recently disabled crossplay because the majority of cheaters tend to come from PC. Now, I don't know where the outlandish idea of, well, console physically can't cheat. We've seen console cheaters before. It's not impossible. I don't know where that idea came from. While I disagree with the devs disabling crossplay, it makes total sense. Since TCM is on Game Pass, where you could basically play the game for next to nothing, it wouldn't be too hard to believe that a majority of the player base comes from Xbox or console in general. So I totally understand why they did it, and they've already made a lot of efforts to upgrade the anti-cheat. I've seen a lot less cheaters in the past couple days myself as compared to when the game first dropped, so I think the devs are doing actually a really good job in that. Now, there are a couple other issues, such as nobody really wants to play Leatherface, and I don't really understand it myself. I really like playing Leatherface. He's a lot of fun, but I do think people have to give him a chance. He's not really good level 0. Once you get him to level 2, where you could do a full rev running around the map the entire time and then essentially one-shot somebody, then it's a lot more fun. But until then, people refuse to play Leatherface, and lobbies take like 5 minutes just getting in the game because people dodge, wait till the last second because nobody gave them a character they wanted, nobody will play Leatherface, and people are just petty. Personally, the only reason why I started liking other characters is because I was forced to play something else. And that's okay. I think that's fine. But the only way to fix the Leatherface issue is to fix the character himself and add more to it. The only thing that I really think needs to be changed in-game, getting stunned while breaking a barricade. You can kind of get stuck in an infinite animation while breaking a barricade if you get bone scrapped or stunned by a Leland ult, and I think that should be changed. How it works with doors is if you're breaking a door, you get stunned, the door keeps the damage you've already done, and the second time you try to break it, the animation is much faster, and you'll actually get it broken. So, obviously, you shouldn't have to reset the entire animation every time. I also think that Leatherface should be made into different variants as well, as the game goes on. Sort of like in Friday the 13th, the game where you could play as Jason, obviously, on the killer side, but there would be different movie versions, and they would all have their strengths and weaknesses. So basically, make more characters that are essentially copies of Leatherface, but with different weapons, different skills, different base perks, something like that. So it encourages people to play Leatherface, but they all have a somewhat different style of play. That way, it can eliminate the Leatherface problem because Leatherface is needed in the game. You have to play him, and it only makes sense because he is the cover. He is the main character of the game. And as they add more characters, obviously, the dodging problem will slowly dwindle down because more people will find a character that they actually want to play instead of going, oh, that guy stole my character, I'm just going to dodge, and oh, I don't want to learn this guy, or, you know, whatever excuse they give. And I get it. I get it. It makes sense. Players have also learned that stealthing isn't always great. So Grandpa basically gets woken up at the beginning of the game, making the cutscene interrupt all the killer's animations straight off the bat. And it could really bone Leatherface, especially when he's revving, which just makes him auto-overheat or run into a wall. And it's very frustrating. You might be a second away from getting a kill as Leatherface. Boom, Grandpa cutscene, and you lose the kill just because of it. And most of the time, Grandpa gets waken up at the very start of the game. So a lot of people have been asking, just remove the Grandpa cutscene. It could just be an overhead banner on the screen. It doesn't need to flash to a cutscene. I think it'd be pretty simple to remove it. And since so many victim players tend to rush out of the basement as fast as possible, the best way to counteract it is to make the setup at the beginning of the game easier for family. And the devs have already noticed a setup problem, and in the next update in a few days, they're going to be starting the match with car battery on. Now, on the topic of bugs, there are a couple very frustrating bugs. I know that the devs are already addressing hitchhiker bugs that causes victims to basically not be able to vault or go through gaps for the rest of the match, and that can be very tough. But one that a lot of players know about is rubber legs on Sissy, and Sissy just in general. She is currently bugged where her weapon is always poisoned. What she needs to do to poison her weapon is to place a smoke cloud and walk through it to poison it. Now she's just poisoned by default. So every time she hits a survivor, it slows them by 20% and it stacks every time. So after like 3 hits, you're physically able not to move. The only other changes that they've talked about so far are bone scrap pool changes, where it was, I think it was originally 5, now it's 4, and now they're going to swap it to 3. And I think that's fair because realistically, how many times are you going to make it so a bone scrap pool actually depletes in a match? And they also recently fixed grapples. When the technical test was around, grapples felt really good. They would register every input you'd actually type on the keyboard. But in the live release, it was really laggy. It wasn't working properly. So I submitted a bug, couple clips. They ended up fixing it, so it registers every keystroke, and killers actually win more often because it's not limiting the amount of keys that you can tap in the actual struggle. So it's much more fair. Victims die more often as a result. The only other issue with them is that it kind of takes too long to win. I think it's fair that you die if you get caught by another killer in a grapple, because you're taking that risk. And most of the time, victim wins anyway if you max out your strength. So I think that's fair, but the winning animations do need to be shorter. The only killer that I noticed to be really long in this animation is Johnny. It lasts way too long. It gives way too much of an opportunity to just instant die, even if you won it. I don't think you should necessarily be given invincibility frames when you win a close encounter. It should just be a shorter animation. XP is also really lacking for family side. I feel like that kind of needs to be buffed. It feels a little ridiculous getting a 4K and barely breaking like 16 or 1700 points. Probably should make it so even if you get a kill, the entire team should get a base amount of XP. Maybe something like 500 to 750, and the person who gets the kill gets a little bit more XP. That way, even if you want to grind on family, you don't lose the chance on getting levels or any points to put into your characters. Maps are slightly a little unfair. I think they're fair for the most part, personally. But Slaughterhouse is a little bit victim-sided. It's very easy to just run Valve, spam that on, turn on Fusebox. A solution to that is Valve should be made to turn slowly, or else the handle will break and the victims will have to find a new one. Or maybe with Fusebox, the killers can have a one-time item that they have to find on the map to turn off the Fusebox once. Can't do it again for the rest of the match, so you'd have to use it wisely. Might be interesting to see what they do with it, because it's very easy to rush these type of exits on maps with good victim players. And when you don't have comms as family, it's kind of tough to win the match. The only other map change that I think should even come into play is probably gas station main road exit. It doesn't really make any sense because you really shouldn't be going for turning off the generator and unlocking that electric gate, because there's no point. You can just go into the main building and unlock one door and boom, you're out. So I don't know how they would change it. Maybe add an extra lock, close the gap which you could go in between and get to that door. I'm not sure, but it should be slightly changed. And the last thing I would really talk about is people giving harassment to the devs and imploring everybody to refund the game and all that. I think people just need to chill the hell out. The game is very fun. Changes will come. The devs obviously care and they communicate with us. So I think people just need to relax, take a step back, and understand the devs aren't as big as companies like Valve or something. Like it's a small team of devs. They'll get the fix done soon enough. They've already fixed many bugs. Again, this is just an opinionated video, so my takes might be bad compared to yours, and if you disagree, that's fine. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about it, if you agree, disagree. And other than that, I'm gonna keep uploading some TCM content, and I hope you guys enjoy. Cheers.